Greetings, everyone. My name is Mark Hanitka. I'm a full-time faculty member in the College of Liberal Arts, and I'm joined by Dr. Tim Rice, who's in the College of Doctoral Studies. Today, we're going to go over the new credit hour analysis tool in this training, which will help you get started as you start calculating your first credit hour analysis. In this presentation, we're going to go over the document itself and explain the different pages. We will then look at the title page and cover page and the important information that needs to be filled out there. Also, it's very important that you start the credit hour process early in your course development, so it can help you see where students are spending time, so you can balance time among the weeks and also balance time between assignments and sources that students are using. And then we will get into some of the common sources and assignments and how you can enter those into the credit hour document. And then in a second part video, we will talk about some more unique and interesting sources and assignments and how you can find and enter them into the appropriate part of the document as well. For more information and on credit hour analysis, there is the CDO modules in the Canvas admin page, and also in the Course Design Cafe, which is where this training is housed, and where also all of the contact information for the credit hour committee and representatives from each college and department is housed. So first we're going to look at the document itself. It is an Excel spreadsheet. It is protected, and areas that you are not supposed to alter are locked, so you don't accidentally damage the formulas in the document. This is the cover sheet, which Tim will speak more about. Down at the bottom, if you go to the next tab, this is the legend. This has all of the different assignments and source materials and an explanation of what is included in each type of material. This is basically exactly what it sounds like, the legend, and has all the information about each different type of item. The third tab is the time map for standard 5-week-long undergraduate courses, and it goes each week and has every possible assignment and source type listed for each week, but you only need to fill out, obviously, what is included in the course. And then after you fill that out, or as you're filling it out, you can go to the summary by activity for undergraduate, and it will show how much time is allocated to each type of activity by week and then total. So guidance, textbook readings, and so on. And then at the bottom, there's a total for all items. The next tabs are if you are developing a master's course or a doctoral course. So it's just the exact same format, except it has more weeks, usually 6 weeks, or in some cases, 9 weeks. So those are, as you go further down, you just have, so this would be for another type of 6-week course, and then this is a time map and a summary for a 9-week course. So that is the basics of the document, and I will pass it over to Tim to talk about the cover page. You're still muted, Tim, just in case. You're muted right now, Tim.
Starting in 3, 2, 1. As you can see on the screen, I have the cover sheet here in the credit hour document, and I've used a course that I've reviewed recently in my Doctor of Psychology program. It is the Sci 7321 course, Advanced Performance Enhancement 3. the psychology of peak experience. And as Mark alluded to earlier, the cover page tab is the first one on the left. And as you can see, it has specific information that you want to put down in the cover sheet. I'm just going to go real quickly through this. This example, as you can see, we have the course code and the course name, which I stated earlier. If you look here to the right, you'll see yellow highlighted boxes indicate a drop-down box. So your college will actually have a drop-down box here. As you can see here, mine is College of Doctoral Studies, or CDS, but you'll have all of the different colleges right here, and you can pick and choose the one that is right for yours, of course. In my case, it's CDS. You put down the date, and then you put the prepared by down here. You put down the person or persons that actually did the credit hour analysis. In this case, I did this along with Wendy Conaway and Lynn Trevisan. They actually helped me go through my course to make sure I got it properly done during my training time. And in this case, we haven't done a review in the past, so this will be the first one for this course. As you can see, we have total credit hours for different colleges, different academic levels here, as you see in the abbreviated letters here. And my total hours for CDS in this case would be 151 hours, or 151 hours roughly, a little over that. And as you can tell in this next box, you see credit hours awarded to student. For the undergraduate student, for any of these classes, you have ranges for 3 credit hours of 135 hours to 150 hours. For a 4 credit hour course, it'd be 180 hours to 200. For the graduate level classes, both at the master's and doctoral levels, the range is 135 to 177 for a 3 credit hour course. In the case of my class, there were 3 credit hours in this course. Now, one thing that's really important to understand is that we do not want to go above the total that we have here as far as so for instance, if we look at the 150 hour max for undergraduate, we don't want to go over that, and we also don't want to go under the 135, because in that case it would actually go above the actual 3 credit hour or below the 3 credit hour total, and that's what we want to make sure we have. In this case, we would for the College of Doctoral Studies. As you can tell, with 151 hours, it definitely falls halfway between that scale of 135 to 177, so we fit in pretty well there. As we go down the topic page, or the cover page rather, there is a box for deviations and rationale for deviations. There are times where you may be developing a course, or someone may have developed a course in the past where they may have deviated from the actual assignments that you may find in the credit hour document here. You do have a maximum of 2 per class, but just make sure that you provide notes that explain those deviations in this box. And then reason for review. In my case, I'm completing a program review for the College of Doctoral Studies Doctor of Psychology program. And so I put that in there, and make sure you're specific on that. And then there are directions for completing the time map right here. So with that in mind, I will turn it over to Mark as he looks at common sources and assignments.
Awesome work. All right. Starting in 3, 2. Thanks, Tim. The next segment is looking at common sources, and this is really anything that students are reviewing or watching or reading for a course. As we get to the document, you will see that there is a sliding scale of time, and that is to provide you flexibility in differentiating between different difficulties of sources. So you might have a textbook page that is maybe particularly easy or not as challenging for that level of the course, or you might have textbook readings or other readings that are particularly challenging. So there's a range, and we'll talk more about that as we look at individual sources, but that is a key feature of this document that you should consider. So yeah, we'll go through textbook readings, scholarly and other technical articles, web pages, videos, and then course features like guidance and announcements and reviewing instructor feedback. Those are also kind of counted in this broad category. So we're going to go to the document, and we're going to go to the time map for undergraduate in week 1. Most courses have announcements and guidance. This would be for a medium length guidance. If you have like a lot of slides or a recorded lecture as your guidance, that should actually get counted separately as a video or as a slide media presentation. But if you just have some written content and maybe some short embedded videos, that could be included in this 60 minutes per week guidance and announcements. So most courses will include this. I don't see any reason why you would not have at least some assignments, or I'm sorry, some announcements, and maybe at least a basic guidance in every week. So the next item is the textbook, and the range here is 5 to 10 minutes per page. Anytime there's a range, if you don't have a strong justification why it would be easier than average or more difficult than average, we'd recommend that you go with the average value, which in this case would be 7.5 minutes per page. And if you just have one textbook reading, you might say chapter 1 of course textbook. You could put the author, year, and then you would say how many pages. Maybe it's 20 pages. And then, so that's going to be 150 minutes. So, and then if you had multiple chapters or readings or multiple textbooks, you would just include that in that same column. And you can actually use Alt-Enter to give yourself another line in the column if you just hit enter, it'll go to the next cell below, but you can use Alt-Enter to add more lines, to add more detail to that. So we want you in the explanation of calculations, to list each separate kind of item, and then how many minutes per page, and then also any justification. So you might say average difficulty reading. So things that would make something less difficult is like if the textbook had less pages or less words per page than average, or it'd be more difficult if it had more than that 250 to 300 words per average, or if the student has to look up a lot of terms, it's like really dense material, and that could be for a textbook or scholarly journal articles as well. So the scholarly journal article is a little more difficult. The range there is 6 to 12 minutes per page. And in here you would write, each individual source and how many pages, and then at what level per page. So this might be 10 pages we'll go with the average. So that would be 9 minutes per page. And then maybe we have another article, which is 5 pages. Maybe this is a really hard one, so we're going to give that, 10 or let's say 11 minutes. we encourage you to be pretty specific here, and also to list, in the case of like journal articles, textbooks, these types of things, try to list each thing separately. So then if you go through a course revision and you're taking sources out or putting sources in, that way you don't have to do the entire calculation over again. If you just have one big number. Also, having each source listed individually, then you can put how many minutes per page and how many pages. Otherwise, you would just have all your sources at the average difficulty. So that would be 90 minutes plus 55 minutes, so 145 minutes for that. Websites, this is any sort of website that you're having a student go to. It could be a website that's linked in a interactive course or in a hyperlinked course textbook, or just websites that students need to review. Mostly reading though, not getting into any sort of interactive, or if there's videos on the website, those should actually be listed separately in video media. But so if students, you would just like list the website, you could put even the link in, or, some description. And in this case, if you're just going to have one, you could just describe it that way. But each individual website that students are going to, and I'm sorry, there's one page, but it's 6 to 10 minutes per page based on the word count. Once again, if you're unsure, go with the average value, which in this case would be 8 minutes. So we will skip over these assignments because Tim is going to talk about those next. And we get down to line 27, which is audio and video runtime. So this would be any sort of audio or video media. And in this case, you just list each individual source and then the runtime for that video. So, and you could put the author and the year, and maybe this is 2.5 minutes, and you can convert. Here it says seconds are divided by 60 to get the decimal point. So 2 minutes 38 seconds would be 2.63 minutes. In this case, the video is 2.5 minutes, and again, you can use Alt Enter, and you can enter another one. And then you just add up the total runtime for those videos. So in this case, 4.25 minutes for that. Media other than audio, video, can include a lot of different things. Websites that have more interactive components, adaptive learning components, games, PowerPoints, Prezis, flashcards. And these could be something that's included in the textbook or independent of. And this has to be calculated on an individual basis. Sometimes the best way, if there's no other calculation from the provider of that media, is to have you as the developer go through the activity, maybe have your ID or anybody else assisting, have multiple people, take the average time and then multiply it by 3 to account for students that are not familiar with the material or the activity at all and are looking at it for the first time. So maybe this is like one activity, we'll call it like game, and then, be descriptive with what it is. And then average time to complete is 30 minutes. And maybe that's based on you as the developer can get through the game in like 10 minutes, but students are going to struggle. They're going to have to figure it out. They're not going to be as familiar with it as you are. So we put that in. And then entry point navigation, this is just, this is for entry point courses, and this is just an additional time of 60 minutes that is to allow students to get comfortable with navigating Canvas. So if you're in one of those types of courses, you would enter that value here. Technology familiarization, this is another, this might be new to a lot of course developers. Anytime, the first time in a course that you ask a student to use a new technology other than Word, but including PowerPoint, Excel, creating videos, creating audio files, using some other kind of app or software, we want you to include 60 minutes per technology for the first time. So if you have them use Excel or like Excel in week 1, and then they're going to use it again in later weeks, you only need to do this once for Excel. But if they're going to do Excel in week 1 and PowerPoint in week 2, and then they're going to record a video in week 3, you would include, 3 times that, one for each type of technology. So here you would put like, PowerPoint, and maybe say like week 1, and then video editing in week 2, and then you would put 120 minutes here. Synchronous learning activities, that is another thing that will have to be evaluated on a case-by-case situation. And that can include a lot of different components: preparation, application, analysis, and reporting. This is, if you're confused about how much time to allocate for this, this would be a great time to reach out to your college rep from the credit hour committee to discuss kind of the type of activity and what, how to calculate that properly. Review instructor feedback on discussions. So however many discussions you have in that week, if this is week 1, we have one, we might have one discussion. And so you are going to give the student time in the week that it's assigned, even though they'll be reviewing the feedback in the following week, but you account for it in the week that it's assigned. So if there's one discussion, then the student gets 10 minutes to review your feedback, the instructor feedback on that. Same thing with written assignments. If there's one assignment, then it's 10 minutes per page. So if the week 1 assignment was 4 pages, then that would be 40 minutes for the student to review the feedback and process it and hopefully apply it to their next week's assignments. Reviews instructor feedback for quizzes, essays, comprehensive exams. This is a range 10 to 30 minutes per quizzes and essays, and 30 to 60 minutes for comprehensive exams. And the range on that is to adjust for the length of the quiz or the exam or the essays. So once again, use the average value if you think it's of average size, like for quizzes, like 5 to 10 questions. Essays, if they're 4 or 5 short essays, and comprehensive exams like 25, 50 questions, and then obviously adjust the time up or down accordingly. And then review instructor feedback non-specific. This would be any other assignment that's not covered in those categories. And once again, a range of 30 to 60 minutes per assignment that doesn't fit into those other categories. So as you can see with what we've just entered for sources, we have this time at the bottom for week 1, which is 567 minutes. And that will show up also on the summary page. Everything that we entered will automatically be put into the summary page as you fill out the document. And yeah, that is an introduction to basic sources and other course tools for the credit hour analysis. And I'm going to turn it over to Tim, who's going to talk about some of the basic assignments and considerations for entering those into the document.
That was good. It was really good.
Thank you. Yeah, I felt like that was longer than the last time, but I also felt like I was trying to incorporate, more of the feedback and stuff. So
totally, yeah. Let me go ahead and get it into my current slide.
Yeah, and I feel like I stumbled a couple times, but not so much that it like threw me off too much. So I just recovered, and you know, we're not professionals, so.
No, we're not. Well, here's a question for you. Do you want to take, I mean, should I just take because you talked about a couple of these things, and I'm going to be, talking about some of them too. Do you want me to just go forward after this is done in my thing and just go on to this right here and just go?
Yep. And you can maybe just say like, hey, we already highlighted some of these. Quickly, these are kind of some of the really important or possibly confusing points that we just wanted to go over again. Maybe after that too, say, once again, if you're working on this, you're working with your ID, you're working, you're the program chair, full-time faculty, you've talked to people in your development circle, you still can't figure it out, reach out to your credit hour analysis person, representative, and they will help you navigate and figure out the best way to calculate something or where it fits. I don't know, that's
works
something like that.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get going here.
All right, I'll go on mute.
Okay, maybe here. There we go. Get my let me stop my share, and I'm going to make sure I have my document ready. There we go.
Would you? I'm gonna mute. Would you rather me leave my camera on? Does that help you? Or okay.
You're good. Yeah.
I didn't know. I didn't want to be a distraction, but I know sometimes it also helps to like be talking to somebody. Like.
No, completely get it. Yeah. Okay. Just gonna get into week 1 because I don't want them to not see that. All right. Here. Come on, man. Share. In 3, 2, 1. Over the next few minutes, I will take a look at some of the common assignments that you'll see within the CHA tool. We're going to look at these that you see on the bullet points: discussions, quizzes, comprehensive exam quiz, formative paper, summative paper, or component rather, a draft, outline, subsection, a summative paper, and then presentations, whether that be oral or media, in the form of formative presentation, summative components, summative presentation. So we'll go ahead and I will escape from this and go to my document. So if you look here at the document, the first thing we're looking at is discussions. This is in the first week of the CHA document in my course that I reviewed for my College of Doctoral Studies. So we'll go to this discussion. Now, it's really important in week 1 to have all classes are going to have an introduction. So making sure that you get the hours that you put in for that in the post your introduction. In my case, I put down 60, and really just looking at my academic level, I thought 60 minutes was a perfect amount. Of course, you have the scale between 30 minutes to 120 minutes, and based on my review and, of course, my understanding of my academic level, 60 was good for me. The second discussion for week 1 was we only had one discussion in that week other than the introduction, of course. And at the doctoral level, I decided to go ahead and put 120 in for my first week. And also weeks thereafter. And I really look at it from the standpoint, and every person that uses this document can utilize it as it states, looking at the complexity of the actual discussion, what kind of research has been done, the word count that is required, and then the level of critical thought that you would have pertaining to the discussion itself. As we move down into and I'm going to do this in order, so everybody, based on the PowerPoint, the quiz. Quizzes are typically going to be, in this case, I didn't have any in week 1, or really in this class, but I do want to go over it. If you do have a quiz, these can be, it can be multiple choice, it could be fill in the blank, matching, or true false. And this is going to include any kind of study and completion time. So an example would be a 15-question quiz is going to typically going to have 60 minutes included in that, and that goes by the standard of 4 minutes a question. That does not change. It is the amount that you would have for quizzes. For a comprehensive exam, which you see right here, right below it, you're going to see that within that, the comprehensive exam may have, you're going to look at 6 minutes a question. Again, it's going to be similar to a quiz in that way, where you might have multiple choice, fill in the blank, matching, or true false questions. And again, it's going to include study and completion time. So again, an example of a comprehensive exam that has these elements in it would be a 100-question exam receiving 600 minutes. And you would be putting that right here in the document. And if you look right here, we'll end up erasing it because I don't want to mess up my document, but for my course. But you can see it, it just pops it in right there. And you can go and you have that right there. So 6 minutes a question on the comprehensive exam. One thing that I think is really important to understand as well is that you may have exams that are a final exam for the course that have essays involved. That is not going to be part of this total. You would actually come up here and add it to the essay exam. And for each question, again, it's a sliding scale. You're going to have between 10 to 30 minutes per question that will be included. And again, that includes the study and completion time of the actual document. So as the example suggests, a 4-question exam is going to receive 40 to 120 minutes. In the case of a doctoral student, I would probably put in there 10 minutes per question if we're going to have an essay exam in that. As far as other information, we have assignments right down here. Let me get to it. It's actually going to be up here. The written assignment, you're going to find in my course, you can find that I had 180 minutes in mine, and then I'll explain kind of why that was. A formative assignment is what we're going to talk about first. And basically, what a formative assignment is, it's basically an assignment. It's not going to contribute to the final, to a summative assessment that you may have that goes toward a final assignment that's at the end of the course. This is something that you're going to have that is basically going to help develop the knowledge and understanding for the student. In the case of the formative assignments, 120 to 150 minutes per page. In the case that, and again, it states that use up to 4 required scholarly sources, and again, doesn't contribute to the summative assessment. In the case that I have here, it was a formative assignment, and it's really important that when you do use column E, that you write out everything as complete as possible. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. But in the case of this paper, I looked at it from, the paper that I have for this actual class for week 1. I have I'm going to have 2 pages for the assignment, and it's at 120 minutes per page. So that's kind of where you get to the actual 180 minutes for the total. And now if we're doing something from a standpoint of a summative component, what a summative component is, it's basically the component, it's helping scaffold for the final assignment that's at the end of the course. So for instance, not in my course in this case, but in other courses that you will see in your programs, that you're going to have specific weekly summative components that will actually provide specific amounts of pages and other information that will then be added to make up the final assignment, which would be a summative assignment. In the case of collecting or figuring out the totals that you would use for this, say, for instance, you have components that are, we'll just say in this case, let's just say you've done a summative assignment component that's, probably 2 pages. Let's just say as an example. In my case, it'd be 240 minutes for each one. And again, all this includes revising, editing, and final submission of a summative assignment. But you're not going to count that amount for the final paper if it's a summative assignment at the final week of the class, because then you would basically be doubling up the amount of minutes that you actually did, and that would not be correct. So you want to make sure you're really, really clear on that. It would be different within the final week. You would certainly not utilize the amount that you have here. You would actually add things that haven't been added pertaining to the amount of minutes that you've used. So really important to kind of go over that. I've kind of talked a little bit about the summative paper already, and and also kind of how that works. But I want to kind of come down here to the presentations that would be either oral or media presentations. When you look at it, again, the summative is, again, very much like I talked about within the assignments, where you are actually utilizing specific elements each week for a presentation, for instance, that will be added to a summative presentation at the very end of the course. So you want to make sure that you don't double up those minutes, that you don't actually use the minutes from week 1 or week 2 or week 3 or any of the weeks in the course that would go into the final assignment. So you certainly don't want to double that up. Now, as far as a formative presentation, it's very much like a formative assignment. And again, you look at all these elements within, and the thing that's great about this document is it really does provide a lot of the information that you need, pretty much all the information you need pertaining to kind of how all of the credit hours would be collected or selected here for this assignment. In this case, a formative presentation does not contribute to a summative presentation. That would only be a component that would actually contribute toward that. So a formative presentation is just that. It's formative in the sense that it's helping students gain more insight into the content area as well as other aspects. Pertaining to actual presentation itself, again, you just want to look at the sliding scale. In the case of the formative presentation, for the oral or media here, you see the example of, that they provide. I actually will go at a 30-minute per slide or minutes of recorded presentation for mine, because I don't want it to be at the top end at the doctoral level, more than likely, but it all depends on the kind of academic level you're at. So those are just the common assignment areas that you're going to see within the actual document itself. And getting back to the actual slides, I kind of want to go over some other factors considered, and Mark has talked about a couple of these, but I want to go over these really quickly. One thing that's really important to understand is this, that, for the media or other than audio video, if the developer is doing the activity to calculate time, that is, the developer is doing the activity, it is best to multiply by 3 to get the student time on task. Really important to consider that. Don't look at it just from the standpoint of the developer or as a faculty member, but look at it from the standpoint of the student. Again, in column E, and this was talked about just a second ago, make sure that you use as much information as there is possible to use. Break out every element that you can instead of just lumping it together. Be very specific. That way, you know, if the course needs to be revised, the people that will actually be looking at it will not have to redo all the calculations. And I think that's really, really a very important element to that. And I'll jump back and show you an example here in a second. Even though faculty would provide feedback in the first week assignments or discussions for week 2, so after the week is done, just remember this, that the information that all your feedback is calculated and it belongs in week 1's calculation. So don't put it into the following week's calculation. Make sure it's in the proper week that you just graded or you just finished. When you're looking at the difference between formative and summative assignments, be sure to make sure you consider the difference between the components, which we talked about a second ago, and the summative assignment in the last weeks of the class. And this includes written assignments and presentations. Really important to remember the components for each week and the assignment at the very end. Don't double dip the hours there. One other thing that we talked about a little bit for written assignments, don't forget to base the page count on the average number of pages if a range is given, and point out the number of references it allows. Really important. You have to be very clear on that. And then lastly, one thing you can do is use the Alt plus Enter buttons when adding details in the notes column. This allows entry to drop down one line when including multiple items in one cell. And if you have questions about any of these things, you can certainly reach out to your college representative of this committee, and we will be more than happy to help you out. And cut.
Awesome job.
All right.
I think we got it.
Cool beans. All right, so do you want me to stop this video now? And
yeah, I think we should stop it. I'll stop it, save it, and then.
You want me to pause the recording and then start again?
I think we should just make a second one.
Okay.
I think this next one will probably be shorter.
Yeah.
And we need to like.
Okay, I'm stopping now.